There are some women that it's all about the number and all about the size, but I think most of us, it's kind of all about the experience. Mm-hmm. And, you know, it just a fish is a cherry on top.
Well, we have a bumper sticker at the magazine, and it says it's not the size, it's the experience.
Welcome to the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, inspiring real women with a passion for fishing and the outdoors to go get their adventure on. Now, here's your fearless host, Angie Scott.
I'm Angie Scott with the Woman Angler and Adventurer podcast, and I'm here with two fly girls, Heather Hodson from United Women on the Fly and Jen Ripple from Done Magazine. And we are actually on location at Fly South Nashville, which is really cool. This is my first two-person interview and my first on-location interview, so it's really exciting. And we've got a really cool setting here. So they're currently on Rip and Hopper's Adventure.
Yep. First day.
Yeah.
This is the kickoff.
This is the very first stop of the road trip. And what I read, you guys are doing 19 days, 3,350 miles, 13 states from Tennessee to Washington.
Yeah.
So that's pretty awesome. And the goal is to fish and meet up with as many women as you can along the way. Mm-hmm. So,
right.
And you've got a live event tonight here at the shop. So do you want to talk a little bit about this whole trip and what the purpose of it is?
This is the beginning, the kickoff, and both Jen and I are huge just in shopping small, supporting local. And so we just chose some different locations for our different events. And partly because I've never been to some of these areas. Like, I've never fished Nashville. Jen is from Tennessee, or she lives in Tennessee now. And so we just kind of want to go from her home water to my home water and a little bit in between. And so we just kind of chose our route based on different areas we have never fished, or at least one of us hasn't.
Yeah.
And we want to just do different events throughout the way. And, there's so many women's groups popping up, and just there's this awesome community, and why not just embrace that and just show that anybody can fish and, just have fun, whether you're male or female, just have a great time and just show that, it doesn't matter what brand fly rod you use or what waders you have. It's just such a community-driven kind of road trip for us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Cool. So you've got big fishing plans for tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you going, and what are you?
We're fishing the buffalo,
okay.
and we're fishing with Zach, who's a guide here out of Fly South. We're going to fish for bass and for buffalo and hopefully some gar, and we will fish for whatever's in the water and is legal to fish.
Awesome.
So that's what we're going to catch.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Whatever wiggles.
Yeah, whatever wiggles.
It doesn't matter. We're just new species. Like, I've never caught. I didn't even know what a buffalo fish was, right? And so I had to look it up today and see. We just don't have those in Washington,
right?
We're trout and steelhead, and we have bass, but it's awesome to just experience new areas and new fish.
And Jen, you don't do a lot of trout.
I don't.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a trout angler at all.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting for me because we're going to fish, first of all, here, which is my, home water, and so for bass and that kind of stuff, which is mine. And then we're going to go to the driftless area of Wisconsin, which is also like the only place that I've really ever fished for trout on any regular basis. And I'm excited to show Heather that, because the driftless area is where the 4 glaciers that came through the Midwest did not touch. Okay. And so they call it driftless because when a glacier comes through, it leaves drift, which is like the rocks and the sediment as it flattens things. But this area, because the glaciers all melted right there, did not get any drift, and so it looks like you're out west. So I'm excited to show her that.
Okay.
Trout Unlimited has done this amazing thing out there, and it's 3,000 miles of improved trout water.
Oh wow!
Like, some of the rivers have 7,000 trout per mile. So that's my only real experience. I mean, I fished Montana a couple times, but I'm not a big trout fan, so I'm going to see if I can't get Heather to fish for things she hasn't fished for, and she's going to see if she can make me a trout fanatic. We'll see.
So is that the area you're originally from?
I'm from Wisconsin originally.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. I'm from Minnesota, and I've not heard of this area.
Oh my gosh, and there's some driftless area in Minnesota too.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the very southeast tip.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. You mentioned Trout Unlimited. Are you both involved with that organization? Or I know
I am.
Heather
Yeah,
is for
so
sure.
I'm the Western U.S. Women's Ambassador for TU. It's like this crazy long name. So basically it's just, I have 14 states and I help mentor women and just leaders in both angling and conservation, and just trying to help, how can we get more women involved in TU, and just showing that, you have to embrace your resources and, just care about where we're at in our world. The cool thing too about TU is we just found out here that in actually Nashville that they're starting up the chapter again. Oh, cool. And in Tennessee.
And everyone is from Fly South that's starting it up.
I know. It's cool. And it's cool to see that there's new blood and younger blood, and just it's different. And it's Trout Unlimited has been pretty good, definitely good. Just trying to being so supportive of just new things, and they're trying to embrace change. Yeah. And that's awesome. And it's, with the driftless area, we're going to fish the Utah Cutthroat Slam. And so we're going to be meeting up with different people from just conservation areas, mainly TU, and finding out what they've done in order to allow us to fish this awesome, Cutthroat Slam. And so, and Montana is incredible too with their Trout Unlimited. So it's been a pretty cool organization.
Yeah, and for me, I was on the Illinois Council for Trout Unlimited, and then was secretary of my local chapter when I was living in Chicago. And then, so always been involved. I mean, ever since I thought you had to join Trout Unlimited when you became a fly angler, because when I learned to fish in Michigan, if you had to be like, part of basically, I mean, they didn't say it, but everybody did, and so I just figured you had to be part of Trout Unlimited in order to be a fly angler in Michigan. So,
interesting. So why does it seems like to me I'm not big into fly fishing. I've done it once. I took a lesson, and it was fun. But I grew up fishing off, trolling for walleye or whatever, and that's actually what I'm going to be doing tomorrow.
So fun.
Yeah, cool.
Going down to Lake Normandy.
Oh, sweet.
And trolling for walleye, so I try to do that a couple times a year. But it seems like more than any other facet of fishing, like conservation is like key in like the fly fishing world. Like, why do you think it's so much more of a emphasis in fly fishing than other parts of the industry?
Well, I personally think it's because we're such fly anglers tend to be catch and release, and I think with the catch and release there comes a point where you realize you're returning this back to the water. You want to be able to catch it again or let it live on and prosper, and with that comes conservation on its conservation of the water that the fish is living in. You want to take care of the fish so that it's released into the water and can be caught again, I guess. And I think maybe that's the big thing, whereas I tend to think that I grew up in Wisconsin on a lake, and if you caught a fish, you kept it, right? And you ate it,
absolutely.
and I mean, that's what you did, and I don't have any issue with that at all, unless you're doing it illegally. But really, I mean, I think that's great. That's part of conservation as well. But I think with the conventional anglers, there tends to be less catch and release, so they don't really think as much about that whole conservation aspect that goes with it.
I've wondered too if tends a lot of fly fishermen and women fish in the rivers and the streams, if maybe those waterways are a little bit more sensitive or affected by
delicate.
By pollution and
the bigger water
types of things. So
and it was Lee Wolf who said too, if you put a fly rod in somebody's hand, you've automatically made a conservationalist.
That's interesting. Wow.
Yeah, and it just like Jen said. Yeah, I think it's always funny because people will say, "Oh, well, do you eat your fish or whatnot?" It's like, well, yeah, in my area, it's mandatory to bonk or kill a steelhead if it's a hatchery steelhead in certain rivers, because you don't want them to spawn together. Yeah. And so, yes, of course, I'll definitely do that. But there's other rivers that it's illegal to keep any fish. So I think it's just most of us, we want to, and I always joke, well, if I kept every fish I caught, there wouldn't be any fish in the water.
And I don't keep. If I catch a saltwater fish, I'm going to eat that thing.
Yeah.
If it's, but if it's freshwater,
mahi tacos,
or tuna. Oh my god,
yeah, absolutely.
But freshwater, I just there are a couple reasons why I practice catch and release, and one of them is because I don't like you don't know what's a lot of these places where you're fishing in freshwater. It's not really clean, so you don't want to eat that anyways.
Right.
But the big reason is I just really hate to clean fish. So
that's
or kill. I don't know. I'm just like that. This is hard, and it's so hard.
I know it's a blood sport, but you hook that fish and he happens to swallow the hook or something, and you're taking it out and you put it in. And that's the hard part for me. So.
I agree. Yeah, I feel the same way.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were actually considering tomorrow. Do we bring a cooler to like keep our fish? Because walleye is the best.
It's the best
eating
fish.
Oh
my gosh, it's amazing.
However, I have zero cleaning fish skills whatsoever. I've tried it a couple times and I got the smallest piece of meat, and I just don't feel right about that.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be catching and releasing tomorrow, even though it's walleye, but they're still fun to catch.
Is it the best time to fish for walleye right now? Is that why you only go twice a year?
I don't know, because I hired a guy. So, being from Minnesota, I'm still learning all of this down here. And the first time I had just had this goal to catch a walleye in Tennessee, because I hadn't done that. And the lake I'm on, there are no walleye in that lake. So I hired a guide on this lake called Lake Normandy, which is down kind of by Manchester. And he took me and a friend of mine out, and I ended up, my friend caught the first walleye, and I was like really bummed. I'm like, he let me reel it in though. He's so sweet. Awesome. He was like, reel it in because I know this is your trip, and so I got to reel it in. But then I actually hooked and reeled in my first walleye down there, and it was this time of year. And so I just keep going back and doing the same thing we did. And I've been successful both times I've been back. Cool. So I just kind of keep, I don't know if it's the best time, but I just kind of keep doing it.
You have fun.
I know.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's true.
And I heard the bite's been tough this season so far, so...
Yeah, but girls tend to have like
better luck. Yeah,
the fish gods are good to us, ladies.
Well, it's funny. I had there's this guy who is he's not an American, but he lives in the United States, and he's a very prominent spay angler, like a two-handed caster. And he said to me at the Chicago show, I was at the Chicago travel show, and he said to me, Jen, completely serious, Jen, why women catch more fish than men do? And I said, why, Doug? And he said, because women emit a certain pheromone that the fish like better. And I go, whatever makes you sleep at night. But he really believed it, and I was like, okay, seriously? All right,
I've heard is that we're just a little more sensitive,
and more patient. We keep our fly,
absolutely,
our
and
lure in the water.
Yeah, for sure.
So who knows what it is, but
it works.
And I think a lot of women, there are some women that it's all about the number and all about the size, but I think most of us, it's kind of all about the experience. Mm-hmm. And, and just a fish is a cherry on top.
Well, we have a bumper sticker at the magazine, and it says it's not the size, it's the experience.
I like that.
That is really cool. That is really cool. I love your, the mantra of the magazine, empowering women, not ignoring men. I think that's really cool,
Thank you.
Because I kind of feel the same way about, even though this podcast is called The Woman Angler and Adventurer, I feel like there's things that everybody can get and benefit from out of it. So.
Absolutely. Well, and when I speak, and it's probably the same with you, I ask, usually if I'm speaking at a banquet, I say, well, raise your hand if your dad got you involved. Raise your hand if your grandpa got you involved. If your son, your husband, your boyfriend, whatever. Every male figure I can imagine. And when I'm done, in a group of women, 95% at least have their hands up. And so, there's a vocal minority in fly fishing specifically of men who don't stand for what the rest of the men stand for, but give the rest of them a bad name. And I don't think that's true. Very rarely do you hear, I don't care if women fish, I just don't want them on my rivers. Most of the men are so welcoming and are so happy to have women in the sport, and so I think giving credence to that was really important for me.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, going back, how did each of you get into the sport in the first place?
I was born in Alaska, and my uncle owns Fly Out Fly Fishing Lodge in Bristol Bay, so Chick Narrows Lodge, And my dad and my uncle were caregivers to that prior to my uncle owning it or purchasing it. So I took my first steps in that area, and I've always had hunting and fishing in my blood. It just, the river runs through my veins, right? And so I was conventional gear fish, did a lot of bear hunting and stuff on horses and all kinds of stuff, and was always salmon and steelhead fishing. And then a guy in my life, I was dating a guy in 2008, and we just both decided we were going to learn how to fly fish. And it took me an entire year to catch my first fish on the fly. And I used a size 14 orange stimulator, no floating, I had no idea what tip it was. Like I was a complete mess. And then just got better and better and had people take me under their wings. And I think that's a huge part of just fly fishing in general, is being a mentor and giving back, because I would never be, kind of know what I know without with the people that have taught me. And so you have to, like, even if you only know how to tie a knot, right? Like, you have to give that knowledge back, because what you put in, you're going to get back just tenfold, which is teaching and everything. And so, yeah, I just have gotten, I just mentoring and being completely nerdy and like diving into books and reading about bugs and just getting out on the water and just meeting women and just friends and whoever I can, get a line wet with is what I do. So it's all just immersing myself and obsessed. We're obsessed.
We are
it's
obsessed,
an easy
for sure.
sport to get obsessed with, because it's fun and it's challenging and it's just so rewarding. The fish are awesome, but everything else about it is by far greater.
Yeah.
So
it's so funny that you said 2008. I didn't know that, because that's when I started fly
Are you
fishing.
serious?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So I was working at the University of Michigan, and it was a really cold winter, and I had just broken up with my boyfriend, and I was looking for something to do. I didn't have any of my family around, and so I saw that there was a fly tying class, and it was really cheap. It was like $65 for 8 lessons or something.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, well, if I go and I don't like it, I just won't go back, right? I mean, for that price. So I walked in. From the moment I walked in, I loved it. So I actually learned to tie flies before I learned to fish.
Oh, wow.
And then in the spring, when the ice was off the river, the Huron River, which runs through Ann Arbor, I just spent all of my time. I'd leave my job. I'd go down to my car, and I'd put my waders on, and I would walk 50 feet, get in the river, and just spend hours and hours in the river teaching myself to fish. And at that, in this process of, now I'm an addict, right? I met another guy who didn't fish, and he just couldn't understand. He didn't believe me. He was like, oh, sure you're on the river. Sure you were out there by yourself for 4 hours and you just got lost in time. And sure you weren't fishing with someone else. And I was like, you know what? This is not going to work for me any longer. So then I vowed that I would never date someone who didn't already know how to fish and didn't come with more expensive gear than I already had, which worked for a little bit of time, but now it's really hard.
Yeah, when you have 25 different
That's
fly
right.
rods. It's ridiculous. So I always joke that I buy rods and reels versus shoes and purses.
Right. There you go.
Some women like that stuff. I'm more this gear, person.
My problem is I buy rods and reels and purses and shoes.
Hey, whatever. It's okay.
Right.
So both of you took your passions for fly fishing from 2008 and then turned them into something pretty huge. What was that process like? I don't know which one of you wants to
man. Well, it's, I started a women's group called Spokane Women on the Fly. And when did you start the magazine? In
2013.
Okay, so I started Spokane Women on the Fly in 2014, March.
Okay.
And that's how Jen and I first kind of connected, was because of the magazine and because of the women's group. And since then, it's like, I always start stuff. I started a search and rescue team in Spokane. I've always am this leader for some reason. I think I immerse myself in stuff. And within that, we just have gotten bigger and bigger, and the process has just grown. And United Women on the Fly was founded because of Spokane Women on the Fly. Obviously it's a very similar name, and you look at the logo, it's very similar. But it's more because people wanted to have something similar to that group. But, being Spokane Women on the Fly, it was more specific to that specific area. And so I wanted to do something that was global. And so, and United isn't for United Women or United States. It's more, we as anglers are united. And that was kind of the idea behind it. And just, It's a lot of work. I'm up at 3 a.m. I'm answering emails. I'm doing stuff on my breaks at work as a nurse. Like, it's a lot of work, but it's so rewarding. And to me, I definitely feel like I get out of it what I put in, and just have meeting you or just meeting these women from Nashville. Like, when would I ever have come down here and met these amazing people and learned about their lives and their tales? And I just keep rolling. I keep rolling.
For me, I think a lot of people nowadays want to get into the industry. They start fly fishing because they want to get in the industry and they want free gear or something. I don't know. But both of us didn't do it for that reason. We did it because we found a hobby that we loved, and then somehow organically we fell into this. Right. I mean, I didn't wake up and go, oh, I think I'm going to start a magazine, and okay, I'm going to have to start fly fishing first in order to do it, right? So I was writing for a Midwest fly fishing magazine called A Tight Loop, and who my business partner owned that magazine. And then I was writing like a woman's column, and so it was very double entendre in that kind of like they wanted me to write like double entendre columns like the sex hatch and 8 inches and all this ridiculous stuff. And so, but I really liked to write, and so I wanted to write for a women's magazine. And so in 2013, in June, I started looking for one to write for, and there wasn't one. And I thought, well, if I'm looking for it, then other people are as well. And so that was in June of 2013, and by September we had our first magazine, and we're going to be 5 years old. And
you've gone to print.
Gone to print, which is in Barnes and Noble. If anybody
has not touched that magazine, it's big, it's oversized, it's like so lovely to feel. The material, right?
It's all organic. It's all organic.
And it's so well put together. The pictures it's a really beautiful magazine.
Well, thank you for that. What I really love about it is that we want to tell the everyday woman's story. So we don't, for the most part, have these professional women that write articles for us. They really are the everyday woman because, in our tagline, empowering women. And we got together and thought, how do I empower someone? Well, it's through education. And if I tell someone's story and they're a professional woman, like April Volke, who's a brilliant, angler, but if I have April tell a story about catching steelhead in BC, well, nobody's going to the everyday woman is not going to be empowered by that because they're going to think, well, that's April and I'd never be able to do that. Whereas if a woman goes to Ecuador on a vacation and picks up a fly rod and catches a beautiful brown trout and falls in love with the sport, then the everyday woman says, this must not be as hard as I think. I think maybe I can do this too. It's something I've always wanted to try. I think I'll try it. And so that's our specialty, is the everyday woman story. That's cool. So.
Yeah. And lifestyle.
And lifestyle, yes.
Because this is such a lifestyle.
It is. And it's a fun lifestyle that, that I think everybody should try. The problem is, when I teach someone, I always say, well, I'm going to teach you how to cast, but the obsession and the cost that comes with it is not my responsibility.
I always say it's an investment, not an expense.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, I like that.
Right? Or fish don't live in ugly places. So maybe you're hiking there, you're mountain biking, or wherever you are. It's your lifestyle.
Fish don't live in ugly places.
It's true.
Awesome.
Every fish doesn't, and even if it's the canal of Phoenix, Arizona, that still has some beauty in itself. Right. It's so everywhere you go, you just have to think about it that way.
I follow a guy on Instagram that he lives in Los Angeles. He's a personal trainer. I actually interviewed him as Troy Lindner's son, for one of my early episodes, and he fishes the Los Angeles River all the time. It's like the Los Angeles River, but he catches.
I did an event at Bob Marriott's in last March, and we had, which was kind of surprising, at least 30 ladies come to this event, and being in Washington and Montana, in the Northwest, we're hippies. So there's a lot of women that are accepted into fishing. And you come in, sometimes East Coast isn't as accepting. There's just different areas. Well, LA, there's not a lot of women who fish, right? So this event, 30 ladies came, and they were blown away that this many women come. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I'm used to more, but it was good, right? And they fished. There was one gal that did an entire presentation on fishing local in LA, on fishing the LA River.
Wow.
And it was so cool to see that you can be so urban and catch these. There's trout in there too, and there's huge carp. And for anybody who hasn't caught a carp, they are badass, man. They fight. They will bend your 6-weight rod. They can be super technical, and sight fish for them. They're fun fish, and it's great training for bone fishing,
exactly,
or saltwater, and learning how to fight them. Yeah. So don't underestimate the urban world.
That's right.
That's for sure.
Well, and I moved from Chicago, so I fished in Chicago. That was my water, and so talk about carp and
so cool.
The bottom part of Lake Michigan. And seriously, I mean, you wouldn't think that you could fish in right downtown Chicago, but you can, and in Indiana right there, but you can.
Yeah,
so.
Awesome. That's funny you say that. I was I work in an office downtown Nashville, just north of the Ryman Auditorium, and I at the time I was in an interior office, so I have no windows, but I had a TV. And so I would always put the World Fishing Network on. I would have it on mute. But that would be like my window.
I love it.
So I'd look up and I could see outdoors because it was always like somebody out fishing or whatever.
Yeah.
And one day I looked up and I saw Nissan Stadium, which is downtown Nashville, on the screen. And I think it was one of the kayak fishing shows. I don't know if it was the kayak fishing show.
It's the one I just did. I just filmed with them in the Bahamas.
Yeah, they were literally on the Cumberland River fishing downtown Nashville from their kayaks right by Nissan Stadium, catching nice bass.
What?
I was like, I would have never even thought that there would be bass there.
I'm coming back to Tennessee.
Yeah. So
awesome.
that was so funny.
Yeah, don't underestimate the urban fishery.
That's right.
That's going to be my new quote.
There you go.
I don't know that you want to keep or eat any fish,
totally.
but
that's catch and release.
That's right.
Take a photo.
Proponent for that anyways.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
So learning I know a lot of people are kind of hesitant to jump into fly fishing because they see that the crazy technique, and was it easy, difficult for you to pick that up, and I've heard also that women tend to pick it up a lot easier than guys do, so I mean,
go ahead.
We're not know-it-alls. Well, not all of us, we tend to listen. I think that's a big part of it, and it's practice makes perfect. I'll watch, even, yesterday or whatever, I'll watch a video of me and I'm like, oh my God, I am hauling too early. And
still dropping my backcast.
Totally.
Yeah, right.
I mean,
it's
it
like
is.
golf.
And
Sounds like golf.
It is. It's definitely practice. And, my first steelhead I ever caught on the swing or on my two-handed rod was the crappiest cast you could ever imagine. And I ended up catching and hooking this awesome wild steelhead. Fish don't care if it's a bad cast. Now you might, and maybe if you have snobby fish that have been a little educated, maybe you need that perfect lay down and that delicate presentation. But as you're learning, it can be a little challenging, and if it's windy or if there's stuff behind you, but you just have to get out and you have to not be afraid to fail. And I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah, there's days it took me a year to catch my first fish. And so you just can't be afraid to fail, and just get out there and just keep doing it and practicing. Record yourself, have somebody record you casting, and then you could probably dissect something that you're doing wrong yourself, and then just practice and connect with a group or, with other people, women's, just a casting club or something to try to get some help with that. But just get out there and do it. So.
Yeah, and I think that a lot of times people think that it's harder than it really is. So you're not going to be an expert cast making these tight loops right away, but you'll be able to cast 40 feet. How often do you need more than that, really, unless you're in saltwater? I can't tell you how many times, I've watched specifically a guy out there make a 100-foot cast and cast all the way out there and strip and strip and strip and strip and strip and have 95 feet of line at his feet, and a carp eats, and now right at the boat, and now he's got to manage 95 feet of line because this fish is gone, or even in saltwater, right? So, and had he just made a normal 50-foot cast, that would have been a lot easier to catch because the fish was right there. Most of the time they are right there, and so I think that a lot of times people think it's more expensive than it is, and people think that it's harder than it is, and it's just really not.
I call that long castitis. Right? So that you'll go, and that's what I tell my ladies. I was like, 30 feet. for most situations, now saltwater, it's, you know, there's definitely some different situations, but 30 feet at max, and make at least 5 casts before you ever step in that water, because I can't tell you how many times, literally 3 or 5 feet in front of me, I've hooked fish.
Well,
and
snook.
especially
one
trout.
foot off the bank.
Totally.
You know?
So 30 feet should be, on average, max, and that's all you need to cast, you know. And this isn't cool that you can cast a long way is great. You're castitis, right? You're casting along. That's cool.
Yeah.
But can you hook, land, release that fish at that? Maybe not.
Yeah.
So it's For sure. So
you mentioned the expense that's a fear of some people, and I've read. You mentioned specifically the fishing, what is it you call it, the fish bum budget.
Yeah.
Do you have any like quick and dirty tips for people like to share?
Fish don't care if you're fishing a $50 rod or a $1,000 rod, first of all. Find a company, maybe local if you like, or find a company that does a kit. So whether it's a rod, reel, and fly line, Orvis does them, Echo, Reddington, TFO. There's all kinds of
Cabela's.
kits. Yeah, Cabela's, whatever. And find, you know, you can spend between $150 to $250 on everything. All you need is a fly, basically. And some even come with flies. And you can start that way. And, you know, a 5 or 6 weight rod, if you're going to be trout fishing, I'd say 6 weight.
Or even bass. I mean, in the Midwest, we always say 5 weight is the best.
Because 5 is the most universal fly rod. So if you bought a 5 weight, 9 foot feet, you know, package deal, then you can catch most fish in most circumstances that you're going to be fishing for. You know, and fish bum budget is more like connect with this community. You know, you have this community in the United States, especially, and with women's particularly, that you like. We're not staying in a cabin or a hotel anywhere. We're all staying at women's couches. We are couch surfing. And that's
or floor surfing.
Or floor surfing, or you know, and that's the whole idea behind this is, and behind just this community that both the Dunn and United Women on the Fly are building, is we want this community of fly sisters or anglers, you know, just this family where you can make those friends, and you can go and see that there are good humans in the world, and you can go and you know, you meet these strangers and you leave as friends, and you know, you can trust, you know, I don't know, it's cool. So I think just meeting people, and you don't have to spend a ton of money on fly fishing in order to catch a fish. You know?
Not anymore.
No, not at all. And now, granted, you get addicted and you have more rods than
right.
Well,
it's like
kind
you said, but other than that,
but you know, that's So you can definitely do it and save some money and find local water. You don't have to travel to the Seychelles, right?
Right.
You don't have to go to any other, you know, out of the country destinations. You can find buffalo carp or buffalo drumfish in Tennessee.
They stock the Harpeth here in Nashville with trout.
So you can, there's a lot of local
or
stuff.
Or even downtown LA.
Totally. That's right. Absolutely. So there's a lot of local stuff that you can do, or take a drive to Montana. You know, gas isn't that expensive.
Go to the Driftless.
Go to the Driftless.
It's
oh my
10
gosh.
hours.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot you can do in a relatively inexpensive budget. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Where can people find you online?
Dunn Magazine.
DunnMagazine.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what about email?
Jen at DunnMagazine.com. Okay. I mean, we make it easy.
Yeah. And info at UnitedWomenOnTheFly.com, or all over Facebook or social media. I mean, both of us are, you know, we have a pretty big presence, and I think the Dunn does a really good job is just showing that it's all body types, all ages, all, you know, races. It doesn't matter like what profession you are, who you are, we're all equal in the water.
And that's one of the things we want to show too.
Totally.
Because women in Nashville are going to be different than women in Wisconsin and different than Colorado and Utah. I mean, so that we're going to show that too. I believe fly fishing is a cohesive sport, and it brings people together, and so I'm hoping that that's going to be true.
And I want women to and anglers in general, just to be able to relate. They see a photo of somebody posted, and they can then look at themselves and say, that's me. You know, it's not just these tall, skinny blondes holding dead fish, right?
I wish.
I know, exactly. But, you know, like, we're not all women in waders, you know? Right. We're all body types. We're everything. And,
exactly.
And I want people to be able to just relate and say, God, I've never done that, but I really want to give it a try. You know, it looks fun. I think, having fun.
It is fun.
Oh my God, it's so fun. And just the people you meet, you know, just in this whole entire journey is just the journey of fly fishing, not necessarily just the journey of Rip and Hopper's adventures.
Right.
But it's the journey of life. You know, you meet these people that you just all have the same values, and it's pretty awesome.
Well, and in Nashville, there's the Music City Fly Girls, a whole big group of women.
I had no idea that they existed until it's
so there's probably local groups in different areas.
And local fly shops. You know, there's different fly shops in Nashville, and one thing too is just supporting local and shopping small, because you know those. You'd be amazed at the amount of knowledge you will develop if you continue to come into a shop, and they may say, oh yeah, you know, maybe this is really the hot fly, right? You should go to this area. So you can learn a lot and really develop these awesome relationships with locals. And that's, you know, just kind of keeping that knowledge around. You got to keep this, we have to keep the sport alive. You know, it has to be inclusive to everybody. So
that's so cool. Well, thank you both so much for being on this podcast, and you shared so much great information, and I can't wait for everybody to hear it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Angie. That's awesome.